Imagine going to sleep tonight, setting your alarm, closing your eyes, and waking up 8 hours later to find out you've made, you know, $400.
Just completely passively.
Right, completely passively. You didn't clock in anywhere. You didn't reply to a single urgent email. You were literally unconscious.
It's the ultimate dream, really.
It is. And for decades, that specific scenario was treated like this total pipe dream, usually sold by someone in a late-night infomercial standing in front of, like, a rented sports car.
Oh yeah, the classic guru pitch.
Exactly. But here we are in 2026, and we're looking at a financial ecosystem where that decoupling of time and money is not only real, it's a highly structured, fiercely competitive landscape.
It's the ultimate evolution of personal finance, honestly. What we're really talking about here is separating the laws of physics from the laws of economics.
I like that. How so?
Well, I mean, in a standard job, energy in equals energy out. You work an hour, you get paid for an hour, but the landscape of passive income operates on an entirely different set of mechanics.
And mechanics is exactly the word, because today our mission for this deep dive is to tear the engine apart and see how it actually runs.
We're getting past the aesthetic of passive income.
Right, we are cutting through all the social media noise, the people typing on laptops on a beach in Bali, to objectively map out what passive income actually requires today.
And we have a ton of material to get through to do that.
We do. We've pulled together a massive, and I mean massive, stack of research for you. We're pulling insights from a 2026 Coursera guide on passive income, a breakdown of 15 wealth-building models from Mintos.
There's also the real estate analysis from Smart Asset.
Yep, and advanced dividend mechanics from Quant Investing, a deep dive on the automated vending industry from DFY Vending, a broad survey of 30 passive ideas from Uber Bio, and to cap it all off, a highly technical wealth management document from Scotia Capital Inc.
It's a really comprehensive stack, and it needs to be because the spectrum of what qualifies as passive income has widened so significantly.
It really has.
We are going to cover everything from digital hustles that require zero upfront capital, all the way to the very granular mathematical realities of corporate tax optimization.
But before we get into the weeds of how you actually pull this off, we need to define the beast. Because when I look at the formal definition from the IRS, it feels incredibly clinical.
Oh, it's very dry.
Super dry. They essentially define passive activities in two buckets: trade or business activities in which you do not materially participate on a continuous basis, and rental activities.
Right.
But having looked through all these sources, I have a serious bone to pick with the word passive. I mean, it feels like a massive misnomer.
Well, it is a misnomer if you assume passive means effortless from day one. I mean, the IRS definition is looking at the end state of the activity.
The finish line.
Exactly. It's looking at the moment the money arrives in your account. What it completely ignores is the incubation period.
Right. The incubation period is where the physics actually happen. Think of it like this. Earning your standard active income, your salary, is like grabbing a wooden bucket, walking a mile to the river, filling it up, and carrying it back to your house.
You get paid for the bucket you carry.
Precisely. If you stop walking, you stop drinking.
Yeah.
Building a passive income stream, though, is like deciding you are going to build a stone aqueduct from the river to your house.
Yes.
Yes. Eventually, the water will just flow into your kitchen on its own. You can sleep, and the water flows.
Yeah.
But to get to that point, you have to spend months, maybe years, moving massive, heavy stones into place.
The aqueduct is the perfect conceptual framework for this entire discussion, honestly, because every single source we reviewed, regardless of the industry, operates on the assumption that you have to move the heavy stones first.
It's unavoidable.
Completely unavoidable. The investment just takes different forms. Sometimes it is pure financial capital, but very often, especially at the beginning of someone's wealth-building journey, the stones you're moving are your time, your specialized skills, and your focused attention.
You're front-loading the labor.
You are front-loading the labor. You have to.
So let's talk about the listener out there who is looking at their own resources right now and thinking, well, I want to build this aqueduct, but I don't have thousands of dollars in capital to buy the materials.
Which is most people, realistically.
Exactly. That brings us to our first major category. If you lack financial capital, you have to leverage sweat equity. You have to use digital skills to build the infrastructure.
And both the Coursera and Uberbio sources spend a lot of time on this.
They do. But let's get past the buzzwords. I mean, how does someone actually build a digital aqueduct in an era where the internet is utterly saturated?
You focus on the mechanics of distribution and organic discovery. I mean, let's look at blogging and affiliate marketing as the classic example. The old model was just writing a review of a toaster, putting a link to buy it, and hoping people showed up. That doesn't work anymore.
Because AI can write a toaster review in 3 seconds.
Precisely. The mechanic of affiliate marketing today is rooted in deeply technical search engine optimization, or SEO.
Right.
When you join an affiliate program, you're given a unique tracking link. When a reader clicks that link, a cookie is stored in their browser.
And if they buy something,
If they buy the product, or sometimes any product on that site, within a certain window, usually 30 days, the retailer's software attributes that sale to your referral and pays you a percentage.
but the heavy lifting isn't getting the link. I mean, anyone can get a link. The heavy lifting is getting the human being to click it.
And to do that, you have to answer a highly specific question better than anyone else on the internet. You aren't writing about the best toaster.
That's way too broad.
Way too broad. You are targeting a long-tail keyword like the best cool touch toaster for households with toddlers under 3. You are structuring the metadata of the article so Google's crawlers understand exactly what problem you are solving. You are building backlinks from other reputable sites to prove to the algorithm that your domain has authority.
It's a ton of work.
It is. Uberbio notes that a successfully optimized site can pull in anywhere from $1,000 to $50,000 a month. But that is the result of years of analyzing search volume data and writing highly targeted material.
It's literally treating a website like a piece of commercial real estate.
Yeah.
I have to build it where the foot traffic already is.
Exactly.
And that leads into another sweat equity route, digital goods. Coursera highlights things like selling specialized worksheets for educators, or complex project management templates for software like Notion or Excel, or self-publishing an ebook.
The digital product space.
Right. And the psychological mechanic here is what fascinates me. It's the build once, sell infinitely model.
It is the purest form of decoupling time from production. I mean, think about it. If you build a physical chair, every new customer requires you to buy more wood and spend more time carving.
Right, you're trading time for every unit.
Exactly. The marginal cost of producing the second chair is almost the same as the first. But with a digital template, the marginal cost of producing the 10,000th copy is exactly 0.
Because there are no materials.
None. The fulfillment is entirely handled by the software platform. The customer pays, the server duplicates the file, and emails the download link. You are completely removed from the transaction.
But there is a trap here, isn't there? Because Uberbio lists creating a YouTube channel as a passive income source because of the ad revenue generated by old evergreen videos.
Yeah.
But Coursera provides a very harsh reality check on the actual mechanism of getting to that point. I mean, to even activate monetization, you have to clear a hurdle of 1,000 subscribers and thousands of hours of watch time.
And that hurdle exists specifically to filter out low-effort attempts.
Right.
The platforms only want to share revenue with creators who have proven they can reliably keep users on the site. You're essentially working an unpaid internship for the algorithm until you prove your worth.
An unpaid internship. That's a brutal way to put it, but it's true.
It is. You might spend 40 hours scripting, filming, and editing a video that gets 12 views. You have to repeat that process dozens of times, adjusting your thumbnail click-through rates and analyzing viewer retention graphs before the algorithm decides to test your content with a broader audience.
Which means for the first year or two, it is the furthest thing from passive. It is a grueling, highly active grind.
Oh, incredibly active.
And we have to talk about the elephant in the room regarding all of these digital pursuits in 2026. The Uberbio source leans heavily into the AI revolution.
Didn't ignore it.
We are seeing a tidal wave of AI-generated content sites, AI graphic design services, and AI workflow automation. If AI makes the initial creation of the product 10 times faster, doesn't it just completely flood the market?
It absolutely floods the market. AI is effectively a power tool for building the aqueduct.
Okay.
But when everyone has a power tool, the sheer volume of aqueducts being built means the value of an average one plummets.
So how does the sweat equity model survive that, if everyone has the same tools?
By recognizing that creation is no longer the bottleneck, distribution is. If the market is flooded with infinite digital products, the only way yours generates passive income is if people can actually find it. This is why the Coursera source specifically points out that acquiring formal knowledge in digital distribution, like getting a Google digital marketing certificate or a Meta social media marketing certificate, is almost a mandatory prerequisite now.
Because you have to know how to cut through the noise.
Exactly. You have to understand paid advertising funnels, conversion rate optimization, and audience retention.
Okay, so the digital sweat equity route is viable, but it's not a shortcut. You are trading money for a massive investment of time and highly technical marketing skills.
It's sweat equity in the truest sense.
But what if you're listening to this and thinking, I am exhausted by the digital ether. I don't want to fight a black box algorithm. I don't want to analyze search volume. I want to own something real, something I can touch.
A tangible asset.
Yeah. Right. Where does that person go?
That transitions us perfectly out of the digital landscape and into the physical economy. We are looking at generating yield from real-world assets. And the Mintos research brings up a mechanism that has really matured over the last few years: the circular economy.
I find this fascinating because it attacks the concept of waste.
It does.
The circular economy is about looking at the physical objects you already own, identifying the ones that are essentially dead weight, and activating them to generate cash flow.
The classic example Mintos uses is a power drill. If you think about the life cycle of a standard power drill owned by a homeowner, it is actually being used to drill a hole for maybe 15 to 20 minutes over its entire 10-year lifespan.
It's crazy to think about.
The rest of the time, it is an underutilized asset sitting on a shelf in a garage.
It's frozen capital.
Exactly, it's just sitting there. But the circular economy introduces peer-to-peer rental platforms. The mechanic is simple. You take a photo of the drill, list it on a localized app, and set a daily rental price. Someone in your neighborhood who needs a drill for one afternoon but doesn't want to spend $100 to buy one rents yours for $10.
But let me challenge the passive nature of this. I have to coordinate with this person, hand over the drill, make sure they don't break it, and get it back. That sounds like a customer service job.
It would be, but the platforms have automated the friction out of the process. The scheduling, the payment processing, and crucially, the identity verification and insurance are all handled by the app's infrastructure.
So if they break it?
If the renter breaks the drill, the platform's insurance replaces it. Your only physical involvement is handing the item out your front door. You can apply the same mechanic to a car you only drive on weekends, or even a paved parking spot in a dense urban center.
You are monetizing the idle time of physical assets.
Monetizing idle time, exactly.
I like that. But renting out a drill is, pocket change. What if we want to scale a physical asset strategy into a serious empire-level income stream?
Now we're talking about dedicated hardware.
This is where the DFY vending source completely blew my mind. When I used to think of a vending machine, I pictured a rusty box in a dimly lit motel hallway that eats your quarters.
Right, shaking the machine to get your chips.
Yes, but the reality of professional vending in 2026 is an incredibly sophisticated logistics operation.
The evolution of that industry is a case study in how technology can transform an active manual business into a highly passive investment vehicle. But it still requires that initial heavy lifting.
The stones.
DFY vending outlines the capital requirements. You are looking at an initial outlay of roughly $3,000 to $10,000 per machine.
Which buys you the physical unit, the custom branding, the commercial licensing, and the initial inventory load.
Correct.
But the source makes it abundantly clear that having a shiny new machine means absolutely nothing if you don't understand the mechanics of location strategy. Real estate rules apply here. Foot traffic is the oxygen of the vending business. You are targeting captive audiences in high-density areas, corporate break rooms, large apartment complexes, university libraries, massive gym facilities.
But foot traffic alone isn't enough, right? The critical mechanic is demographic alignment.
Yes, absolutely crucial.
Because if you secure a contract to place a machine inside a high-end boutique fitness center and you stock it with generic potato chips and sugary sodas, it's going to sit there and collect dust.
The demographic demands specialized protein waters, pre-workout gummies, and organic snacks.
But if you take that exact same health-focused inventory and put it in a blue-collar manufacturing warehouse, it will underperform. You have to run the analytics on the localized consumer behavior.
You really do.
Okay, but let's address the physics of the daily operation. Because if I own 10 vending machines spread across the city and I have to blindly drive a box truck around every Tuesday to see if they need more candy bars, I haven't built an aqueduct. I've just bought myself a delivery route. And that brings us to the automation factor, which is the core difference between an amateur operator and a professional investor. Modern vending machines are connected devices. They utilize telemetry and cashless payment systems.
Let's break down telemetry because that changes the entire paradigm.
Telemetry means the machine is constantly communicating its internal state to a cloud-based software dashboard. From your laptop at home, you can see a real-time digital twin of every machine in your fleet.
A digital twin.
Yes, you know exactly that slot A4 sold 6 items today, and slot B2 is entirely empty. You know exactly what the gross revenue is down to the penny.
It turns the physical chore into a logistics video game. I'm not driving out to a machine to just check on it.
Never. You only dispatch a vehicle when the data tells you that a machine has crossed a specific depletion threshold that warrants the cost of the trip.
Oh, that makes sense.
And when you do go, you aren't bringing a truck full of random inventory. You are bringing a pre-kitted box containing only the exact items needed to refill the empty slots. The efficiency gains are astronomical.
And DFY vending mentions turnkey operations, where management companies essentially do all this for you.
Right, they take a cut to handle the logistics.
They negotiate the location, install the telemetry-enabled machine, and sometimes even handle the restocking. They project that a highly optimized machine in a premium location can generate a net profit of around $1,600 a month.
Which is substantial.
And because the software handles the complexity, going from 1 machine to 5 machines doesn't multiply your workload by 5. The software just tells you to pack a slightly larger box.
You are shifting your role from physical laborer to inventory manager and capital allocator.
Which actually serves as the perfect bridge to our next major category.
Right.
Because eventually, if your digital products or your vending machines are successful, you accumulate surplus capital, you end up with a large pile of heavy stones.
And the goal is to stop moving the stones yourself and force the stones to build the rest of the aqueduct for you. This is the traditional heartland of passive income, the money-making money economy.
We're talking about the financial markets.
We are, and this is where we have to introduce the concept of risk premiums. When you deploy capital into the financial system, you are essentially renting your money out.
Okay.
The amount of passive income you receive in return is directly correlated to the level of risk you are willing to accept that you might not get your original money back.
So let's start at the absolute floor, the baseline safety net. Because not every passive income stream should be a high-wire act that keeps you awake at night.
Right, I need a foundation.
The Mintos research outlines the foundational layers designed primarily for capital preservation.
At the very base, we have high-yield savings accounts and money market funds. The mechanic here is vital to understand. If you leave your money in a traditional checking account earning a fraction of a percent, the physical reality is that inflation is actively destroying your purchasing power.
Your money is slowly bleeding out.
Exactly.
But how do high-yield accounts actually generate the 4 or 5% they pay you? Where is that money coming from?
When you deposit money into a bank, the bank doesn't put it in a vault with your name on it. They immediately turn around and lend that money out to someone else to buy a house at a 7% interest rate, or they lend it to a corporation, or they buy short-term debt issued by the government.
So they are earning the spread.
They're earning a high yield on your money, and in a high interest rate environment, to incentivize you to keep your deposits with them instead of a competitor, they pass a portion of that yield back to you.
Makes sense.
Money market funds operate similarly, pooling investor cash to buy incredibly safe short-term government securities. The return is modest, but the liquidity, your ability to get your cash back immediately, is near absolute.
It's pure defense. But if I want to go slightly higher up the risk ladder to get a better return, Mintos points us toward bonds and ETFs. Let's explain the physical reality of a bond transaction. Why is a massive corporation willing to pay me passive income?
Because corporations constantly need cash to build new factories, hire workers, or acquire competitors. They can either issue new stock, which dilutes the ownership of the current shareholders, or they can borrow the money.
And a bond is just a loan.
Exactly. When you buy a corporate bond, you are acting as the lender. You hand the corporation $1,000. In exchange, they hand you a legal contract promising to pay you back the $1,000 in, say, 10 years.
And the passive income is the coupon payment.
Right. To compensate you for tying up your money for a decade, they agree to pay you a fixed interest rate. The coupon, usually twice a year. It is highly predictable cash flow.
But there is a risk.
Always.
Right.
If the corporation goes bankrupt before the 10 years are up, you might lose your principal. This is why credit rating agencies exist, to assess the likelihood of that bankruptcy.
And if you don't want to try and guess which single corporation is going to survive, you use an ETF, an exchange-traded fund. The mechanic of an ETF is brilliant.
It really is.
Instead of buying one bond from one company, you buy a single share of a fund that mathematically tracks an entire index of thousands of companies. It instantly democratizes diversification.
You spread the risk so thin that the failure of any single company is barely a blip on your radar.
Okay, but what if the listener has a much higher risk tolerance? They don't want a modest 5% yield. They are looking for aggressive growth and are willing to take the hits.
Then you leave the safety net and enter the realm of alternative and high-risk yields. Mintos, for instance, operates as a platform for peer-to-peer or P2P lending.
I am fascinated by the mechanics of P2P. You are essentially cutting the traditional bank out of the equation entirely.
Completely.
If someone in another country wants to take out a personal loan to buy a car, or a small business needs a bridge loan to buy inventory, they go to a P2P platform. The platform breaks that loan request down into tiny fractions.
Right. You might fund $50 of that loan, along with hundreds of other individual investors. You are collectively acting as the bank. Because the traditional banking overhead is removed, the borrower might get a slightly better rate, and you, the investor, capture a much higher yield than a savings account.
But the risk is entirely on your shoulders. If that borrower stops paying, there is no FDIC insurance to make you whole. Your $50 is gone.
It evaporates.
Which means the only way to survive P2P lending is extreme diversification across hundreds or thousands of microloans, hoping the high interest earned on the paying loans outweighs the inevitable defaults.
Precisely. You have to play the law of large numbers. And if we want to talk about taking on extreme structural risk for yield, the Uberabio source highlights crypto staking.
Oh boy. Let's translate this because the jargon in crypto is impenetrable. What is the actual mechanic of staking? I mean, how does locking up digital coins generate more coins?
To understand staking, you have to understand how a blockchain actually works. A blockchain is just a massive digital ledger of transactions. But because there is no central bank verifying who sent money to whom, the network relies on a decentralized consensus mechanism. In older networks like Bitcoin, they use proof of work, where massive computers burn electricity to solve math problems and validate the ledger. But modern networks use proof of stake.
Meaning you use capital instead of electricity to prove you are trustworthy.
Exactly. In proof of stake, you lock up a certain amount of your cryptocurrency in a specialized digital wallet. This acts as a security deposit. The network protocol randomly selects you, or the pool you are part of, to validate the next block of transactions.
If you do it right.
If you do it correctly and honestly, the network mints new cryptocurrency and rewards you with it. That is your passive yield.
But I want to inject a massive dose of reality here. Staking is often marketed as a high-tech savings account. It is not. It is fraught with complex technical risks.
Massive risks. The first is slashing. If the validator node you are delegating your crypto to goes offline, experiences a technical glitch, or attempts to approve fraudulent transactions, the network protocol automatically punishes the validator by permanently destroying a portion of the staked funds. Your funds.
Your principal literally gets burned.
Yes. Gone. The second major risk is the lockup period. Many protocols require you to lock your funds for weeks or even months. During that time, you cannot withdraw or sell your asset.
And in the cryptocurrency markets, a month is an eternity.
Oh, an absolute lifetime.
Let's say you are earning a fantastic 12% annual yield from staking. But while your funds are locked, the overall market panics and the price of the underlying coin drops by 50%. Your passive yield is mathematically useless because the principal asset has collapsed in value and you are contractually trapped and unable to sell.
The volatility risk dwarfs the yield reward in many cases. To round out the high-risk category, Mintos touches on private equity. The mechanic here is entirely different.
Right, stepping away from crypto.
Private equity firms pool capital from wealthy investors to outright buy private companies, restructure them, grow them, and ideally sell them 5 to 10 years later for a massive profit.
But the barrier to entry is huge. This is usually restricted to accredited investors, meaning you have to prove a very high net worth or sustained high income to legally participate.
It's a walled garden.
And the key word you use is years. Your capital is entirely illiquid. You cannot log into an app and hit sell if you suddenly need cash. You are locking your stones away in a vault and hoping a bigger aqueduct emerges a decade later.
Which is why private equity is not a strategy for someone looking to cover their monthly grocery bill with passive income.
Exactly. So we've looked at the floor savings accounts that lose to inflation after taxes, and we've looked at the ceiling crypto staking that could vanish overnight. Where is the middle ground? Where is the sweet spot for the listener who has capital, wants reliable, significant cash flow, and wants to understand exactly how the machine works?
That brings us to the core engines of passive wealth generation, the cash flow kings. We are talking about deep value dividend stocks and real estate investment trusts, or REITs.
Let's start with dividends, because the psychology of how people buy dividend stocks is often totally flawed. Our source from Quant Investing does a phenomenal job exposing what they call the dividend trap.
The trap is so common.
To use an analogy, chasing the absolute highest dividend yield on a stock screener is like eating pure refined sugar for a quick energy rush. It feels amazing for about 20 minutes, and then your body crashes horribly.
The math behind the trap is what catches people off guard. You have to understand how yield is calculated. Dividend yield is simply the annual cash dividend paid per share divided by the current stock price.
So if a company pays $1 a year in dividends and the stock costs $10, the yield is 10%.
Correct. Now, human psychology naturally gravitates toward a high number. An investor sees an 8% or 12% yield and thinks they've found a gold mine.
But you have to ask why the yield is that high.
Exactly. Often the yield isn't high because the company is wildly profitable and raising its dividend. The yield is high because the denominator of the equation, the stock price, has completely collapsed.
Let's walk through a scenario so this makes sense. A company's core business is failing. They're losing market share. Institutional investors see this and start selling the stock en masse, driving the price down from $50 to $10.
But the corporate board of directors, desperate to keep retail investors from abandoning ship, refuses to cut the raw dividend payout.
So mathematically, the yield spikes to 12%.
Exactly. The retail investor buys in, blinded by the yield. But the physical reality of the business hasn't changed. The company doesn't have the cash flow to sustain that payout. Eventually, they are forced to slash the dividend.
And the moment they announce the cut,
The remaining investors panic. The stock price plummets to $3, and you lose your passive income stream and 70% of your initial investment.
you ate the sugar and you crashed. So how does the quant investing research suggest we avoid the trap? What is the nutritional label we should be reading?
They lay out a very strict rules-based mechanic for filtering companies. The primary metric is the payout ratio. This is the percentage of a company's net earnings that they're paying out as dividends.
Right.
If a company earns $100 million and pays out $90 million in dividends, their payout ratio is 90%.
Which leaves them with almost nothing to repair their factories, hire new talent, or weather an economic recession.
Exactly. Quant investing suggests looking for a payout ratio strictly under 60%. This proves mechanically that the company generates more than enough cash to comfortably cover the dividend while retaining enough capital to actually grow the underlying business.
That makes total sense.
You also look for a history of strong free cash flow and low debt-to-equity ratios. If a company has massive debt, the bondholders and the banks get paid long before the dividend investors do.
But the most fascinating concept the quant investing source introduces is something that completely shifted how I view the stock market. They argue that looking solely at the cash dividend is incredibly short-sighted. You need to look at the total shareholder yield.
Shareholder yield is a composite metric. It measures all the different levers a corporation can pull to return wealth to you. It adds the cash dividend yield to the debt reduction yield, and crucially, the net stock buyback yield.
We have to unpack stock buybacks because this is an invisible, highly tax-efficient form of passive income.
It really is.
Let's use an analogy. Imagine the total value of a company is a large pizza, and it is cut into 10 equal slices. You own one slice.
Okay. The company has a phenomenal year and generates a massive pile of surplus cash. They could pay that cash out to everyone as a taxable dividend. But instead, management goes into the open market and uses that cash to buy 2 slices of the pizza back from other investors who are willing to sell.
And once the company buys those 2 slices, they essentially destroy them. They retire the shares.
Exactly. The physical size of the total pizza, the fundamental value of the company hasn't changed. But now, instead of being cut into 10 slices, it is only cut into 8.
Which means mathematically, without me lifting a finger or paying a dime in taxes, my one slice just became significantly larger. It represents a larger percentage of the company's future earnings. The value of my shares goes up.
And this is why quant investing recommends building a highly diversified portfolio of 30 to 50 stocks that exhibit high total shareholder yield rather than just high cash dividends.
Yeah.
You are capturing the wealth returned through both direct cash flow and indirect share appreciation.
And once you build that portfolio, you have to execute the most powerful mechanic in finance: compounding.
The DI right.
Yes.
Hmm.
If you do not need the cash dividend today to pay for your groceries, you do not take the cash. You enroll in a DRIPE, a dividend reinvestment plan. The brokerage automatically takes your quarterly dividend and buys fractional shares of the same stock.
The aqueduct is building itself. Next quarter, you earn dividends not just on your original investment, but on the new shares purchased by the previous dividends. Over a 20-year horizon, the exponential curve of compounding is staggering.
But as the source notes, it requires active management of the portfolio.
It's not totally set and forget. If a company fundamentally changes, if they take on toxic debt or freeze their dividend, you must sell and reallocate.
You have to protect the integrity of the aqueduct. Okay, let's pivot to the other titan of cash flow. Democratized real estate. Specifically, real estate investment trusts, or REITs, as
Right.
outlined in the Smart Asset Research.
Right.
I love REITs because they solve the fundamental problem of physical real estate investing. The 2 a.m. plumbing emergency.
Physical real estate is incredibly active. You are dealing with tenant disputes, property maintenance, and municipal zoning laws. A REIT abstracts all of that away.
Thank goodness.
It is a corporation that pools investor capital to purchase and operate massive income-producing real estate portfolios. We are talking about assets the average person could never afford to buy. Sprawling outdoor shopping centers, hundreds of acres of commercial timberland, vast data centers powering cloud computing and high-rise apartment complexes.
You buy shares in the REIT exactly like you buy shares in a normal stock. But the reason REITs are specifically engineered to be cash flow kings comes down to a very specific quirk in corporate tax law.
The 90% rule. To legally qualify as a REIT and maintain their special tax status, the corporation is mandated by law to pay out a minimum of 90% of its taxable income to its shareholders in the form of dividends.
90%. That is a massive forced distribution of capital. Why would the government allow a corporate structure like that?
Because the corporation is trading retention for tax elimination. By distributing 90% of their earnings, a REIT generally pays zero corporate income tax. The money flows directly past the corporate level and into the pockets of the shareholders.
But the type of real estate matters deeply because they react differently to macroeconomic physics. Smart Asset breaks them down into categories. The most common are equity REITs.
An equity REIT is simple to understand mechanically. The corporation owns the physical building, they lease the space to tenants like a grocery store or an accounting firm, and they collect rent.
And the passive income you receive is quite literally a fraction of the rent paid by those businesses.
Exactly. Their success is tied to occupancy rates and property values.
But then you have mortgage rates, or MREITs, which are a completely different animal. They don't buy buildings, they buy the paper. They invest in mortgages and mortgage-backed securities.
Their income isn't rent. Their income is the interest homeowners and commercial buyers pay on their loans.
And because their product is essentially debt, MREITs are hypersensitive to the physics of interest rates.
Very sensitive. If the central bank raises interest rates aggressively, the value of the MREIT's existing portfolio of low-interest mortgages drops significantly, which can drastically impact their stock price and their ability to pay the dividend.
It requires the investor to actually pay attention to the broader economic environment. Now let's address the catch with REITs. Because earlier we established that REITs avoid paying corporate tax by forcing the money out to the shareholders. But the taxman always collects eventually.
Always. Because the corporation didn't pay tax on the earnings, the government shifts the entire tax burden onto you, the individual shareholder. For U.S. investors, REIT dividends are generally not considered qualified dividends.
It taxed as ordinary income.
Which means they are taxed at your highest marginal tax bracket.
So if you have a high-paying active day job and you add thousands of dollars in REIT dividends on top of it, the government is going to take a massive bite out of that passive income.
They will, but Smart Asset highlights a critical mechanical nuance that softens the blow. Under current tax provisions, like the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, investors may qualify for a 20% qualified business income, or a QBI deduction on their REIT dividends.
Let's do the math on that. If I am in the 24% tax bracket and I receive $100 in REIT dividends, I normally owe $24. But the QBI deduction lets me ignore 20% of the income. So I'm only taxed on $80.
Exactly. So your 24% tax rate on that specific income effectively drops down to 19.2%.
Right.
It is a vital mechanic to understand when projecting your actual take-home passive yield.
Okay, we have reached the summit. Let's set up a hypothetical scenario for the listener. Let's assume you have executed on everything we've talked about. You built a successful digital affiliate empire. You own a fleet of 50 automated vending machines, generating massive cash flow.
You're doing well.
You are. You have deployed the profits into a highly calibrated portfolio of shareholder yield stocks and diverse REITs. You are making serious, life-changing money. To protect your personal assets from liability and to manage this complex operation, you have a formal corporate structure.
The big leagues.
Yes. Your vending machine business is an active corporation, and it holds a treasury of passive investments. How does the government treat this massive accumulation of wealth?
Welcome to the final stage, the final boss of passive income, corporate tax optimization. To dissect this, we are going to dive deep into the highly technical framework outlined by the Scotia Wealth Management Research. They specifically focus on the Canadian model, the Canadian-controlled private corporation, or CCPC.
And I want to stress to the listener, even if you do not live in Canada, do not tune this out.
Right, the concepts are universal.
The underlying philosophy of how tax systems attempt to regulate passive wealth is universally applicable. Understanding the intent behind the math changes how you view wealth accumulation globally. Because at this high level, passive income is no longer just about generating cash. It is a highly strategic defensive game of retaining it.
Absolutely. We have to start with the concept of tax integration. The core philosophy of the tax system is that an individual should be completely indifferent as to whether they earn a dollar directly as a human being or whether their corporation earns the dollar and pays it out to them.
The total tax paid should ideally be exactly the same.
But the reality is that corporations have a massive advantage when it comes to active business income. If my vending machine corporation generates $500,000 in profit from selling snacks, the government applies a very low small business tax rate to that active income.
They do this intentionally, so the business has surplus cash to buy more machines, hire technicians, and stimulate the economy.
Right. But human nature looks for loopholes. If the active corporate tax rate is, say, 12%, and the personal tax rate for a wealthy individual is 50%, a wealthy individual will realize they can exploit the system.
They will take their personal millions, put the money inside a corporation, and use the corporation to buy stocks and bonds.
They try to use the corporation as a cheap tax shelter for their passive investments.
And the government hates that.
They despise it, which is why the CCPC framework violently separates active business income from passive investment income. When a corporation earns passive income like stock dividends or interest on bonds, the government hits it with a massive, punitive upfront tax rate of roughly 50%.
50% upfront. It is entirely designed to neutralize the advantage of using a corporate shell for a personal stock portfolio.
And a few years ago, they added an even more restrictive mechanism, the $50,000 threshold. Scotia Capital details how this actively punishes businesses that hoard too much passive wealth.
Let's explain the mechanics of the clawback, because this blew my mind when I read it.
If a CCPC generates more than $50,000 in passive investment income in a single year, the government begins to aggressively claw back the corporation's access to that low small business tax rate on its active income.
Wow.
For every dollar of passive income over the $50,000 limit, the corporation loses $5 of its small business deduction limit.
So the physics of this are wild.
Well,
Let's go back to my vending machine empire.
yeah.
My active business of selling candy bars makes $500,000, and normally I pay a low tax rate on that. But because my corporate treasury is simultaneously generating $100,000 in passive dividend income from the stock market, the government looks at my whole setup and says, "You are generating too much passive wealth. You don't need our help."
Yes.
And they effectively raise the taxes on my active vending machine business to the much higher general corporate rate.
They are forcing the corporation to choose. Either reinvest your capital back into the active business to grow the economy, or pay the money out to the human shareholders so the government can collect personal income tax. You cannot sit on a dragon's hoard of passive wealth without severe tax friction.
But the system is built on integration, right? That 50% upfront tax on the passive income isn't the final end state. The government provides a mechanism to relieve the pressure if you play by their rules.
Enter the RDTOH, the refundable dividend tax on hand. This is perhaps one of the most brilliant and complex regulatory mechanisms in modern finance.
Let's walk a hypothetical dollar through this machine.
When your corporation earns passive income and pays that punitive 50% upfront tax, the government doesn't just put that money in their pocket and walk away. A large portion of that tax payment is tracked in a notional account, an invisible ledger called the RDTOH.
So the government is essentially holding your money hostage.
And what is the ransom demand to get it back?
You have to push the wealth out of the corporate shell. The only way the corporation can trigger a refund from the RDTOH account is by declaring a dividend and paying the cash out to the human shareholder.
Because the moment the human shareholder receives the dividend, they have to claim it on their personal tax return and pay personal income tax on it.
The government gets their cut from the human.
Precisely. The mechanic, according to the Scotia Capital Breakdown, is highly specific. For every $2.61 of taxable dividends the corporation pays out to the shareholder, the government issues a $1 tax refund to the corporation from the RDTOH account.
The gears mesh perfectly. The corporation prepays a massive tax to prevent hoarding. But the moment it distributes the wealth to the owner, the corporation is made whole via the refund, and the owner pays the appropriate personal tax.
The integration is flawless.
But wait, what about capital gains? Because a major part of passive wealth accumulation is asset appreciation. If my corporation buys an office building, holds it for 10 years, and sells it for a $1 million profit, how does the machine process that?
That requires navigating to an entirely different part of the tax engine, the capital dividend account, or CDA. To understand the CDA, you first have to understand the fundamental mechanics of capital gains taxation.
Right.
In many jurisdictions, including Canada, capital gains are not taxed identically to regular income. Typically, only 50% of a capital gain is subject to tax.
So on my $1 million profit from selling the building, $500,000 is considered taxable income, and the other $500,000 is entirely tax-free.
Correct. The taxable $500,000 is hit with the heavy corporate investment tax, generating RDTOH, which we just discussed. But the magical part is what happens to the non-taxable $500,000.
What happens to it?
The government tracks that tax-free portion in the notional capital dividend account.
The CDA is basically a VIP ledger.
It is the holy grail of corporate tax planning, because the rules state that any balance sitting in the CDA can be paid out of the corporation directly to the human shareholder completely, 100% tax-free.
That is massive.
It is an enormous conduit for flushing wealth out of a corporate structure without triggering personal tax liabilities. Furthermore, life insurance proceeds paid to the corporation upon the death of a key person generally flow into the CDA as well.
So from an estate planning perspective, understanding the mechanics of the CDA is the difference between passing on generational wealth and handing half your life's work to the revenue agency.
Exactly. And the final piece of the Scotiasaurus touches on the concept of GIP, the general rate income pool. This determines the flavor of the dividend you receive personally.
Because not all dividends are created equal. We have eligible and non-eligible dividends.
The mechanic here relates back to how much tax the corporation originally paid. If the corporation lost its small business deduction, perhaps because it hit that $50,000 passive income threshold, it was forced to pay the much higher general corporate tax rate on its active income.
That heavily taxed income goes into a tracking pool called Gray P.
So the government acknowledges that they have already taken a massive bite out of that specific pool of money at the corporate level.
Yes. So when the corporation pays dividends out of that Gray P pool, they are designated as eligible dividends. And when the individual shareholder receives an eligible dividend, they are granted an enhanced dividend tax credit on their personal tax return.
The system lowers the personal tax rate to account for the fact that the corporate tax rate was so high. Again, it is the pursuit of perfect tax integration.
It is a stunningly intricate machine. You put the money in, and the gears of the RDTOH, the CDA, and the GIP turn with absolute mathematical precision to ensure the cash flows out to the individual seamlessly, guaranteeing the government gets exactly its mandated cut, but not a penny more.
It proves that at the absolute highest levels, passive income isn't just about the offense of generating cash. It requires a brilliant defense to retain it.
It transcends investing. It becomes structural wealth management. Well, we have covered an immense amount of ground today.
We really have.
We have traced the complete evolution of the aqueduct. We started at absolute zero capital, exploring the sweat equity required to build digital ecosystems, navigating the SEO mechanics of affiliate marketing, the psychological leverage of digital goods, and the grueling reality of algorithm-driven platforms in the shadow of the AI revolution.
From there, we moved into the physics of the local economy, We explored the circular mechanics of monetizing idle assets and the deep logistics of scaling an automated vending empire through telemetry and demographic targeting.
We then deployed capital into the financial markets, dissecting the foundational mechanics of yield, from the safety of money market funds and the physical reality of corporate bonds to the structural risks of crypto staking.
We navigated the psychological danger of the dividend trap, uncovered the hidden wealth of shareholder yield and stock buybacks, and explored the legal tax structures driving real estate investment trusts.
And finally, we confronted the final boss. We dismantled the engine of corporate tax optimization, mapping the flow of capital through the CCPC framework, the RDTOH refund mechanism, and the tax-free conduit of the capital dividend account.
It is a massive landscape, and if you are listening to this right now and feeling completely overwhelmed by the sheer volume of mechanics we just unpacked, let's bring the physics back down to earth.
What is the single actionable takeaway from this entire stack of research?
The takeaway is focus. The biggest mistake you can make is listening to a deep dive like this and attempting to launch a blog, buy a vending machine, stake crypto, and incorporate a holding company all at the same time.
That is a recipe for catastrophic failure.
The key is to run an audit on your current physical reality. What are your constraints? Do you have an excess of time or an excess of capital? Pick one single stream that aligns with your resources today. Dedicate all of your energy to moving the heavy stones for that one specific aqueduct. Do not look at anything else until the water begins to flow on its own.
Build one aqueduct at a time. I love that.
Yeah.
But as we wrap up, I want to leave you, the listener, with a final thought to mull over. A question about the future physics of our economy.
Okay, let's hear it.
Earlier, we touched on how AI is accelerating the creation of digital products. But the reality is that AI is rapidly commoditizing active labor across the board. It is writing functional code, it is summarizing dense legal briefs, it is generating commercial art. The traditional equation clocking in for 40 hours and trading linear time for a secure paycheck is undergoing a fundamental disruption.
The baseline value of human active labor is shifting dramatically.
So here is the question you need to ask yourself tonight. In a world where active labor is increasingly automated and commoditized, is the pursuit of passive income going to remain a luxury for the wealthy? Or, by the end of this decade, will having an automated, decoupled financial safety net become an absolute necessity for everyday survival?
If your active income is suddenly automated away by a server farm, how secure is your family if you haven't built an aqueduct?
It is a stark reality to consider. The mechanics of survival are evolving, which brings us right back to the beginning. The physics of making a living have fundamentally changed. Energy in no longer guarantees energy out.
It might be time to start learning the mechanics of financial alchemy.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive.